Okay, and we are live. Welcome everyone. Hey audience, thanks for joining. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. We appreciate that. We've got a loaded panel here, guys. We've got Flow Traders, we've got 21 Shares, we got Chainlink. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So welcome, guys. How you all doing?
Great, thank you.
Great, happy to be here.
Looking forward to it.
Love it. Let's do it. Okay. Before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping for the audience here. Want to just make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. We'd really appreciate that. It helps us just bring more great content like this, get more great speakers like this. So would love to do that. But yeah, let's dive straight into it. So today we're going to be talking about bringing institutional grade security to Web3. And we have an amazing panel, like I said, but rather than me introduce them, let's just go round robin. If you guys want to each give yourselves a little short introduction and who you are, what you're up to, and we can go from there. Hey, let's start with you, and then we can go Aaron and Johan.
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of 21 Shares and 21 Co. 21 Shares is the world's largest issuer of crypto exchange traded products with products, 50 ETFs or so, from Australia to the Middle East, Europe, and now we have a couple products in the US as well. And under 21 Co, we do tokens, and I think this is going to be relevant to what we'll talk about today. Aaron?
Oh, thanks. So GM everyone, my name is Aaron Chan. I'm digital asset strategist at Flow Traders. My role involves around supporting our commercial and trading teams with internal research, as well as spearheading some of our external content initiatives. For those of you who don't know, Flow Traders is a leading global liquidity provider and market maker headquartered in Amsterdam, but we have offices globally. We're originally rooted in sort of TradFi. And we significantly expanded our digital assets and established a segment of our business, trading operations and strategy as early as 2017. And yeah, just really excited to be here today to talk about the launch of 21BTC on Ethereum and to be alongside Johan and Hani.
Perfect. Yeah, and very good to be here, obviously. I lead the business team at Chainlink. I've been there for the last 5 years now. Big DeFi and blockchain maximalist who wants to see, hopefully, how we can bring about a better world with this technology. And that's what Chainlink is about. It's about supporting projects and our partners and helping them build safe, secure applications on chain. And I'm super excited to be speaking with Hani and Aaron around how we are partnering on all of that.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, guys. And so I think this is Hani, let's set the stage here. Like 21 BTC, what is it? And then let's weave this into like why Ethereum and then this institutional grade security theme that we're talking about today.
Sure. So if we start at the beginning and take a step back, I think a bunch of us woke up a few weeks ago, heard some news about wrapped Bitcoin, and were concerned. Various levels of concern, various levels of worries. And that was because of a number of factors. First, wrapped Bitcoin is an absolute important mainstay in the DeFi ecosystem. About $10 billion in total value locked. It's a significant amount of Bitcoin, but it's also a significant amount of collateral held on DeFi protocols and the like. And so where it is, how it's doing is very, very important. And there is a lack of transparency with some of the organizations that are now associated with wrapped Bitcoin in one way or another. Now, at 21 Shares, we have $6 or $7 billion in AUM across 50 ETFs. We have beta exposure to crypto. So selfishly, as a firm, we want to prevent black swan events. We want to make sure that DeFi is safe. We want to make sure that there are no interruptions there. And one of the major things that we have seen from the ETF side is how to bring about at the forefront of innovation highly regulated institutional grade product with transparency, with a very, very high bar for what customers deserve and what we should provide them. Some of these things include simple things like proof of reserves, which we have successfully done on the ETF side now with several of our products with Chainlink. And it's this kind of transparency that we want to bring to the wrapped Bitcoin space. I would love to caveat before we get in any further in that we are crypto natives that do ETFs, and we're crypto natives that do tokens. We simply build bridges into crypto, and we see all of these as different wrappers. Different wrappers make sense for different customers, and that's my way of saying we actually have no issues whatsoever with more decentralized offerings for wrapped Bitcoin. But the way we think of it is there's DAI for stable coins, and then there's USDC and USDT, and they actually go after different customer profiles. And so where we think we can be the most helpful with what we have done, with the name that we have in the space, with the amount of time and regulations that our firm has been under, is bring about a highly transparent wrapped Bitcoin product, 21 BTC, that's audited, that is guaranteed through proof of reserves to have the Bitcoins that it has, and to provide this to the end community. And so I think a lot of people will be comfortable with that. A lot of people will be comforted by institutional grade custody, by a centralized known player that you can call, let alone one that's has various businesses or products that are regulated by 16 regulators around the world, including the Americans, the Europeans, and elsewhere. And so that in a nutshell is how we're thinking about it and how we got here.
Love it. And Aaron, I want to toss this over to you too, right? To add a little bit more. You had mentioned you guys, came from this TradFi world, and now you're setting up deep roots in the digital asset space. So I'm curious, how do you guys think about institutional grade security? How do you view the importance of products like this, and sort of some of the the vectors that you guys think through?
Yeah, definitely a great question. And I guess first off the bat, as Flow Traders, we are partnering with 21 Co as the exclusive liquidity provider for 21 BTC, not just on Ethereum but also on Solana. And just when we think about the product, I think excluding Ether and stablecoins, Bitcoin is really sort of, I would say, the most widely used form of exogenous collateral in the Ethereum DeFi ecosystem, with something over 8.5 billion in circulation. So I think we're really excited to extend our collaboration with 21 Co to Ethereum, where we really currently see the largest use case for BTC outside of the Bitcoin network. And I think touched upon I think a lot of reasons why we have a lot of confidence in terms of working with 21 Co. Besides you guys being one of the world's largest issuers of crypto ETPs, I think it's not as well known sort of the rigorous asset management practices and operational excellence that has to go into sort of bringing this world of wrapped assets onto blockchains. And just to give you some examples of that, right? I mean, in order to build those bridges, as you mentioned, I think that requires extensive knowledge and expertise around dealing with assets, both in an on-chain and off-chain context. Requires important decisions around custodial security, the transparency and auditing, so audits and proof of reserves, which I'm sure we'll probably get into, operational resilience, and also obviously risk management and liquidity provisioning. So I think along all those dimensions, we really thought long and hard about that, and I think together as a collaboration, we really bring that to the table in terms of use case and utility to BTC on Ethereum.
Yeah, and Johan, I'd love to get your thoughts on how have you seen this demand for security evolve over time?
So I think crypto goes by cycles in many aspects, and most people care about the aspects of cycles when it comes to markets and pricing. The security outlook also goes through cycles, actually. It depends. Some teams are focused on a long-term approach within the space. They basically see the space within a span of 5, 10, 20, 50 years. Those teams come within cycles where things are more quiet, where you need a lot of conviction to build. I think 21 Shares is actually a team which proved a lot of pioneering insights as a long-term company would, where they basically worked with us on proof of reserve when actually they weren't forced to, right? No one forced 21 Shares to actually say, hey, we need proof of reserve. It's a key requirement. They actually had this pioneering insight to say, hey, we want to build something long-term. We want to pioneer something let's do it together, right? And I think having this approach of long-term building is directly related to security. A lot of teams come with a short-term approach, come within cycles where you have to move fast. There is VC funding, there is tons of stuff happening. You're basically FOMOing, you're chasing the next big thing, right? These short-term teams compromise on security a ton, right? So I think in general, what I've seen is a trend where people who have a long-term approach and who don't FOMO into, next big things, they take their time, they will favor security. And those come within cycle, depending on how, what's happening within the space. And then you will always have teams, because it's a space that's always moving very fast, where, you always have to speed up, basically. You have to be the first, etc. You will always have another category of teams that compromise on security. And the short-term and long-term approach, the reason I'm saying it, I speak, it's a complex answer, but this long-term and short-term approach can be seen in the wrap Bitcoin space very, very easily. In the kind of, in the space of creating Bitcoin derivatives, you can see the different approaches that play here. And what I like so much about 21Co is that, having worked with their team and having seen how they perform and how they think about the future, they fit within this long-term approach category. They fit within the people who really care about security and understand security. I hope that answers the question.
I think it does.
And just for the background on that, with our spot, so I think what Johan is getting at, this is actually not the first collaboration that we've had with Chainlink. We had it on the traditional side with ETFs. With our spot Bitcoin and spot Ethereum ETFs in the US, we are today leveraging Chainlink's proof of reserves technology to provide investors the highest level of transparency. Everyone can view the BTC and ETH holdings under the ETFs directly on the blockchain through Chainlink's proof of reserve interface. And that is something that we're very excited to bring to market. And it goes without saying that Flow Traders has been one of our biggest partners from the very, very beginning, our first market maker, and absolutely one of the most important parts of 21Shares' journey. And we have an exceptional amount of experience with them on the ETF side as well.
Yeah, I think it does. Johan, I was wondering if we've mentioned proof of reserve a number of times here too, and I want to know if you can add any other perspective, like what is it about proof of reserve that is this sort of institutional grade security where like folks like 21Shares goes, we need this. So
I think with proof of reserve, first one, there is a need for transparency that proof of reserve can bring, right? It's another thing. People are required transparency. Crypto is about transparency. Blockchain is about transparency. So there is this aspect that proof of reserve makes it much more transparent to know, okay, this asset is fully backed. It's proven. I can check it by just looking at the chain, right? There is another aspect of proof of reserve, which is the next iteration of that, where proof of reserve can actually be used in minting functions or in circuit breakers on chain. This is critical, right? Because if you look at the power of smart contracts, everything happens automatically. It's all deterministic, right? And the big risk you can have within a smart contract for any derivative asset is the risk of overmint. What happens if my derivative asset is victim of minting 1,000 Bitcoin more than it should? Now, this risk I'm mentioning is a very real risk. Actually, some of the biggest hacks which have happened in the crypto space were over-minting hacks, where an asset, and this usually happens with bridges, but it's happened in other cases, an asset is over-minted 50x its current supply. And that basically means the whole asset goes to zero. The beauty of proof of reserve is that now DeFi protocols and asset issuers can check the proof of reserve on chain and see, am I minting more than there is actually in the reserves according to the proof of reserve feed? And if there is this mint happening, the smart contract will automatically revert it. It's basically programmable backing. You cannot get better in terms of security. And I think it's really an adaptation of institutional finance to our space. Because there is one thing in our space that's different from the current TradFi world. You cannot revert things. Once something happens on chain, you can never go back. There is no room for mistakes. And that's why our space in terms of security is really extremely unforgiving. And it's quite a violent space in terms of security. If you mess up once, you can never go back. And I think that's also why I was so impressed by the pioneering foresight from Hani and the 21 Shares team. They, unlike many others coming from institutions to blockchains, they understood A to Z. Okay, we need secure systems because with blockchain, if there is a mistake, if anything goes wrong, I can never go back in time and revert it. It's completely different from the way TradFi work, where you always have recourses, etc. So yeah, I think that's where on-chain proof of reserve can really add a ton of security and make it fit for institutions to adopt our space.
And Johan, I think maybe just to add on that, right? Like the word security, there's another word that's kind of closely related to that, which is trust. And I think, Jimmy, you asked like, what is the value of working with sort of trusted institutional grade partners? And I think it's absolutely critical. And maybe just to make it a little bit more tangible, is that, maybe things like proof of reserves. I think, Johan, you said that sometimes the interest in this kind of technology is cyclical. And I mean, it is cyclical in the most literal sense, in that, they're a little bit like fire alarms, right? Like people don't really pay attention to them until they're absolutely needed. And then you notice that they're either lacking or that they saved your life. And I think tangibly in terms of markets, or at least what you see with pegged assets in particular, is that, assets that do have that backing, that do have that trust, that do have that transparency, in times of severe market stress, may likely actually experience lower dislocations in terms of market pricing to pegged assets. So I think it's not just a theoretical concept that we're talking about, but actually has real market impact.
Yeah. Henny, anything to add on sort of this riff here?
No, I think they more than covered it.
Yeah, these guys nailed it. Love it. All right. Yeah, I think that's really cool. I want to circle back to this idea of this sort of like inherently adversarial environment in a question. But before we do that, I'm just curious, like, as we think about products like 21 BTC, like what are the things that users should be considering, right? Like, what are the assumptions they should be checking? What are the like threat vectors they should be considering? Like, what are the utility pieces that they should be, on the lookout for? And I think, Hani, we can start with you there. But like, basically, like, what should users be thinking through when they think through a product like 21 BTC?
So I think the answer is twofold. First, you should see who the counterparty is. There's a reason why most of us don't respond to random Telegram message or the spam that we see, right? And realizing who your counterparty is, doing the research, seeing who the people behind the projects are, if they're known, if they're unknown, if they have been vouched by other people, etc. That is a very, very important thing that, in my humble opinion, would dissuade you from 95% of the attack vectors. The last 5 or 10% of the attack vectors comes into a trust but verify. And one of the things that we ask for our customers here at 21 Shares on the ETF side, and we're doing the same thing with 21 BTC on the token side now, is it's all wonderful that we're regulated by every major regulator in the world. It's all wonderful that we have billions of dollars, but don't trust us. Trust our processes. Trust our records. Trust our blockchain proof of reserves. We have nothing to hide, and therefore we will be extra transparent. Most people don't know this, but our financial reports for 21 Shares, the thing that holds all of the ETF dollars, it's public. You can go to our website. You can see how much we have, what we made off of it, etc. Our proof of reserves is public, and so I would push people to think about the counterparty long and hard, and then B, go with those counterparties that are trusted, feel good, but that you don't have to take a huge leap of faith on. We will guarantee with tech and with regulations that we are doing what we're doing. You shouldn't just take our word for it. And that should be the bar, by the way, for stable coins, for exchanges, for wrapped assets, for ETFs. That should be the minimum table stakes.
Aaron, I'm curious on the flow traders side of this. Like, presumably you guys have lots of choice with who you can work with and lots of choice of what assets you would support or not. And so how do you think through products like this, and how should like the end user ultimately be thinking about that as well?
Yeah, I think focusing on the end user part here, to add on to what Hani was mentioning, I think there's maybe 3 other dimensions you could think about this. So the first one is sort of what are the custodial and security models that are involved here. You touched on this partially in terms of evaluating the counterparties, but I think, are we talking about a lock and mint model, or are we talking about cold storage, right? That's, I would say, the first dimension. Second dimension obviously would be liquidity, right? So is there deep liquidity for the wrapped assets that you want to trade against the pairs that you care about? And this sort of liquidity dimension, I think, is closely connected to the third one, which is really kind of utility and integrations. So are you able to use your wrapped asset as collateral or margin on, let's say, a decentralized exchange or a perps dex, or are you able to use it on a centralized exchange also as margin for perps trading, or to use it as collateral for borrowing and lending? And I think sort of that utility, integration, and liquidity dimensions are closely related. But I would say those 3 additional aspects are definitely worth considering when evaluating these types of products.
Johan, I'm wondering if this might be an interesting tie back to what you were talking about with irreversible transactions, immutable contracts, and the importance of like thinking through every possible attack vector, right? And then securing against it, and how things like proof of reserve and other other products or best practices can be put in place here. I'm wondering if this might be an interesting way to tie that back specifically to 21 BTC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I'll go back to Hani's answer, actually, which was very focused on counterparty risk. On-chain, you have to also look at counterparty, but there's a counterparty is the smart contracts being leveraged by the asset, right? That's a different kind of counterparty. It's basically what tech are you using, what's securing your asset, your application, etc. Now, I think proof of reserve, I covered it already. The overmint issue is a real issue in the blockchain space. Having a circuit breaker to prevent it is always extremely useful, and I've seen it implemented by DeFi protocols, by issuers, etc. The second part, which is very important, when you have a token on chain, this token needs to have utility. Aaron covered it to do borrowing, lending, use it as collateral. For Bitcoin, there is actually a huge demand for Bitcoin collateral for lending, because right now most Bitcoin folks are not doing anything with their BTC, right? They want to be able to leverage it somehow. And one of the key reasons they'll be entering DeFi is to basically use their BTC as collateral for a stable coin loan, right? I want to buy a car. I have some BTC. I don't want to ever sell my BTC. All right, I put it into a lending protocol as collateral. I get 50K in USDT in whichever stable coin, and I go buy whatever I want to buy, right? Now, for us, whenever you get your asset as collateral, you get into the price feed field. What price feed is being used to actually price your asset? Chainlink has been providing price feeds for this exact use case I described for the last 4 years now. We basically built a decentralized network of node operators who have been securing most of DeFi and most of what happens in terms of lending, borrowing, tokens, such as this, right? So I think it's basically when an asset comes on chain, how does the minting work? Then when it gets introduced into DeFi, how is it priced? And then the third part I would be looking at, when it gets cross-chain, which technology is it using to get cross-chain? And it's also a very, very key component. So Chainlink has launched our cross-chain network, around a year ago now. We've been working with some of the kind of major players in the space, with Go on Aave, with many others. And our main goal with cross-chain is how can we securely bridge those assets from one chain to the other? Because right now we're literally seeing one hack every month at least, if not two, on the cross-chain side of assets being over-minted, being stolen, etc. Right now, CCIP is looking to solve this huge issue. So just to wrap up, basically, I would say when an asset gets on-chain, sorry, you want to look at what tags they're using, because that becomes your counterparty. It's what is a counterparty in terms of smart contracts. And there it comes down to which applications is the asset being used for and how is it being secured. And that's where I think Chainlink has built over the last 5 years a platform to securely make an asset useful on chain.
And Hani, I'm wondering, are there other considerations either on this utility thread that Johan's picked up on here as well, or on like the security idea of like mitigating bad actors in this adversarial environment? Like, is there additional layers or thoughts that 21 Shares has put into this?
I think Johan more than covered the specifics, but maybe to add a little bit of an extra different flavor to it. If we do this right, we should think about, if we do this right, this will set up a base to do so much more. Wrapped Bitcoin is almost an accidental success, right? No one thought it would reach 10 billion. No one thought that it would be this important. But when we think about wrapped assets being almost a full replacement for bridges in 90% of cases, what we could do with that kind of platform if we really use this as a base from which to expand. And so I echo everything that Johan said, but I would add to it that we are very excited not just about Wrapped Bitcoin, but about once this becomes successful, doing what's next and really investing more in this ecosystem. And we think it's as big as bridges, it's as big as a lot of the DeFi enablement that we're all seeking.
Yeah, amazing. So much to get excited for, right? There's like what the future that can be built. I'm looking at the clock now, and so I think as we wind down here, what I'd love to do for the audience is if you guys want to just tell us anything that they should be on the lookout for, or where they can go to find more about you, any upcoming announcements that might be interesting to them. Maybe Aaron, we can start with you. We can go around from there.
Yeah, definitely. Time flew by. Yeah, so I think like many other community members and partners, we're going to be at Token 24/9 at Singapore. So if you're there, feel free to reach out to us. And next week we have some pretty big announcements as well, including a white paper which we will be publishing. So please stay tuned for that. Otherwise, we can provide links to our website as well as our social handles as well. We're Flow Traders on X. So yeah, feel free to follow us there.
Hani, if you want to go.
Sure. Also going to be in Singapore. I believe I'm doing 3 conferences. There's Token 49 and the Network State, and Solana Breakpoint, and I'm excited about all of them. Please reach out, say hi. I'm at Hani on Twitter. We are at 21 Shares on Twitter. If you want the more information on the token, you can check out 21.co or 21shares.com. And the token is out. It's been live for many months. Flow Traders is already providing liquidity, and you can buy it yourself on Uniswap as well, trading Wrapped Bitcoin for 21 BTC, as well as some fiat pairs as well as some other alternative pairs that we will do at some point as well.
Perfect. And for me, I'll be at Token 2049 also, and Breakpoint. And probably actually there is Zen DevCon, and we have SmartCon, or the Chainlink conference. So I'll be spending a lot of my time in Asia in the next 3 months, if anyone wants to meet up. And on Twitter, you can find me at @JohanEid. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Aaron and Annie. And I think we have a lot of great stuff to build together. So really looking forward to it.
Likewise. Thank you so much. To our audience, thanks for sticking with us, spending part of your day with us. Would love you to like and subscribe, just so it'll help us bring more great content and more great speakers like this. So really appreciate it. To our panelists, thank you. This is amazing. Really appreciate you guys stopping by and sharing all your insight with us.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.